So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining the Art of Face Drawing with Tiffany S. DaVanzo, a portrait artist and instructor with Global Arts Community, Sktchy. Tiffany is a freelance medical illustrator specializing in art for medical publications, education, and the medical legal field. She is a 2003 graduate of the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Art as Applied to Medicine program. Tiffany is a certified medical illustrator and has been a member of the Association of Medical Illustrators since 2001. She lives in East Tennessee with her husband and two young daughters. In this session, Tiffany will share the basics of drawing a human face. And we're actually in for a treat today because she'll be using a photo of one of our very own Senior Planet participants by the name of Kay for the whole class to draw together. So I'm thrilled to introduce you all to Tiffany DaVanzo.
Hello, hi everyone. I am just going to switch my camera real quick so you can see me a little bit bigger. Let's see. Nope, that's not what it did. There we go. Okay, so it's very nice to meet you all. I'm thrilled to be here and to get to join you for another drawing lesson. And like Nicole said, our muse is fabulous. So this is Kay that we're going to be drawing today. And we're going to be really just focusing on some basics of drawing the human face, and hopefully all these tips you can apply to any type of drawing that you want to do in your spare time. I'll try to keep it kind of basic, but if any of you are advanced out there, feel free to zoom ahead and just do your own thing. And let's get started. I think we have the chat up, so if you have that link to the photo is there, and if you have any questions that you kind of want to shoot out to me, I will try to like divert my attention from time to time over to the chat to see if I can catch any questions. And then of course, Nicole can jump in and let me know if something comes up. But first, we're just going to, sorry, remove my cat that's jumped over here. All right, I'm going to switch back to my overhead view. Yes, that was my office assistant. So let's talk about our photo. I did want to spend a minute or two talking about some things we can do to edit our photo. So maybe some of you are downloading the photo now and you're going to have it on your phone, or you're going to have it on your iPad for a reference, or you need an extra minute or two to maybe shoot it off to the printer. This is a good time to do that. So I'm going to pull my iPad over here on the screen, and then I'm just going to open up iPhoto, and I'm going to just go here to my album and just pull up the photo. So if you are editing a photo on your phone, or if you have an Android or something other than an iPhone, it maybe will look a little bit different, but all the basics are going to be the same. Now, Kay has sent us just a really actually phenomenal photo for portrait drawing because it is nice and close up and it has great lighting, but sometimes we get one that's maybe a little bit dark, or there's maybe a little bit of background info that we don't need in that. So let's just talk about a couple things real quick in the next 5 minutes or so that we can do to make these photo even better for drawing. So if you click on the photo, then you can go up here to edit. And then that's going to bring up a few of these different controls here. If you're on your phone, those controls might be at the bottom instead of on the side. The first one I do a lot is this crop one. So I'm going to hit crop. You're going to see it's put everything in a frame. And again, if this is old news to you, then we'll just get through this kind of quickly. But I know this is one of the questions that I get asked a lot from my friends and family, is how to manipulate photos. So now once we've got it in crop, we can just go ahead and pull this frame in. So let's say I wanted to maybe not see so much of that ceiling fan. I can just pull it in a little tighter from all the angles. And that's going to allow me to focus on the area of the photo I want. And if I hit click done, then we have a nice cropped in photo. Now, if I go back in there, if I didn't like what I did, you can always hit this revert button and it's going to take you back to the original photo. So you haven't messed anything up if you accidentally crop too much. The next thing I just want to show is under filters here. And there are quite a few different
Tiffany? Looks like she's having a bit of connection issues. Just give us a moment. She'll be back shortly. Bear with us, folks. Tiffany will be rejoining momentarily. As we're waiting for Tiffany to rejoin, I will reshare the photo. See, folks are asking in the chat that we will be drawing today. Our very own Senior Planet participant, Kay. Just give me just 1 second. Just pop that into the chat there for everyone so that you can grab it. We apologize for the technical difficulty as she's making her way back on. There she is. Okay, let's see. Hey, Tiffany,
Okay.
you're back. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. We just had a power outage in Tennessee. So I just completely lost all power. So let me get my screen back up here. Okay. All right, we're back in business. Do I look like I'm back in business, Nicole?
Yep, you're back in business.
Perfect. That is the thing that when you're doing these live drawings, that is like worst case scenario. And everyone says, don't worry, worst case scenario is not going to happen. You're not going to have a power outage on a sunny day. But to just fixing our photo really quick, we talked about how to turn it to black and white and how to crop. And then I'm just going to go back here. And then hit these adjustment layer. And these are some other controls you can do. The auto button is just going to let the iPad, your phone, the computer automatically tell you how it thinks the photo is going to look best. Sometimes it's pretty good. Usually it is not. So you can go down to some of these other controls like exposure, and that will just add more light or take it darker. Brilliance, highlights, that will adjust your highlights. Again, this photo is actually really quite perfect to begin with. Contrast, that can make it, take that value scale one way or the other. Brightness is something I use a lot. If I am printing out a photo to draw from, a lot of times I just take the brightness way up so that when it prints, it's a little easier for me to see. And then saturation is another one I use a lot just to make it, this will take it more towards black and white. And if you go the other direction, that's going to really kind of bump up those colors. Vibrance is very similar. Warmth will add more reds and warm tones into your photo. And if you take that away, it will then, again, kind of gray the photo out. These are just some things that are fun to experiment with. If you have a photo that's not quite right, tint will then adjust all of the colors at once. So, but the main thing that I do a lot for drawing is make the photo black and white or crop it. So, and the last thing I want to show you real quick, and then we're going to start drawing, is that you can always take your photo, click on these dots and hit duplicate. And that's going to give you a second copy of the photo if we go back to our album. And then if you are worried, if you want to have the color version and the black and white version, you can then come in here and then just go down here and change that to black and white, hit done. And now you have both versions to work with. Quite frequently when I'm drawing, I do work off my phone or an iPad, and this will just let you quickly switch back and forth. So I'm going to put this aside, but I'm going to have it here handy in case I need to pull it back. Sometimes I do, when I'm drawing a feature, like to be able to really zoom in so I can see all the details. So it's handy to have that close by. I've also printed one so I know that I have it on the screen at all times, and I have a black and white version and the color version to work from. So, okay. Here we go. So tools, I'm just working from a sketchbook, and I have a variety of pencils here. If you have these are great. If you have this, just a regular old 2B pencil, that is also perfect. The important thing is to just have something so that you can kind of get started. I'm gonna just change my screen here so I can see a few more of you while I'm drawing. Okay. I also have, this is a lead holder. So this is just a kind of a mechanical holder for pencil lead in there. So if I'm using this, it is just a 3B lead in here. So just kind of a standard lead. And then I have these are just kind of eraser pencils, these small erasers. Again, this will work just as well. So just use what you have on hand. And I have a little kneaded eraser. These are very handy for, fixing large areas at once. So I think I'm just going to start. I'm just going to grab one of my pencils here. And I think I'm just going to start with a 2B, which is essentially the same as this. And when I start drawing the face, the first thing I start is think about is proportions. And I like to kind of just block out how big I want it to be on my page. So I'm going to try to draw almost exactly the same size as my reference photo here. And I'm just going to make a little line at the top and then kind of come down and mark a little line where I want her chin to be. The reason I do that is it kind of contains me. So when I get excited, when I get exuberant and I want to draw really big, I've kind of said, this is how big I'm going to draw it. This is my top of the head, and this is the bottom. Real quick, I'm going to pull up my chat here because when I lost power, I lost that. Okay. All right. Soft, medium, or hard charcoal pencils. Charcoal is fabulous to use on this drawing. I would start by going from soft to hard. And the reason I would do that is it's just a little looser, and then the hard is going to allow you to get finer details. So once we get into drawing the eyes and stuff, you'll want a harder pencil or a harder charcoal. So I'm kind of starting right in the middle. The next thing I do is I draw a circle for the cranium for the skull. So if I'm looking at my skull, the circle I'm going to be drawing is going to be encompassing this part. So the top of the head down to just kind of in between the nose and the mouth kind of area. And that's just going to kind of give me a nice basis for the skull. This picture is wonderful because she's got her hair pulled back, so we're not seeing a lot of hair to distract, so we can really kind of see the shape of her skull. So I'm going to, holding my pencil a little bit farther back so it allows me to be looser, I'm going to now come in here and draw a little circle. And I kind of try to start off nice and loose. You might see I've got a few little lines down here just to kind of guide me. Sometimes when you're talking and drawing, you can get distracted. So I'm going to allow myself those little concessions to keep me on track. So this is now the main shape of the skull. Now I'm going to take a line and I'm going to try to draw a line down to kind of give me the midline of her face. Again, just starting at the top, going down to her chin. And I always start drawing as lightly and as loosely as I can, and I apply harder pressure and more detail as I go along. So the next way to divide the face is you take this circle and you're going to kind of look and try to figure out where your eyebrow line is going to be. So from the top of the head to the eyebrows, from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and from the bottom of the nose to the chin are all about equal. So that's called like the rule of thirds. So if I go the top of the head and I put a line in for the eyebrows, and then I go about that same distance down, doing this, I just kind of measure with my fingers. I'm going to put a little line. So this is going to be about the bottom of her nose. And I do that same thing again. I'm going to get the chin. Okay. And you might look, to me, the distance from the bottom of her nose to the chin looks a little bit longer. And that's because her chin is tilted up a little bit. So I'm going to just go ahead and figure that it's a little bit farther down. And those are just the individual differences we make depending on who we're drawing and the things that we observe. Okay, so now I can come in and kind of do the same thing for the eyes. And I'm just looking at the distance down from the eyebrows to the nose. I'm going to kind of make an eye line in here. All right. And now I can kind of start to, well, let's go ahead and give her a lip line too. I was going to start on the outside of her head, but let's go ahead and add a line for the lip. So the lips are going to fall not quite halfway down. So we can go down halfway and then we're going to pop up a little bit. And that's going to be the midline of the lips. And I'm just going on my edges, I'm just hitting down just a little bit the way her lip line does. And I can give myself an indication of the bottom lip there and even the thickness of her top lip. Okay, so we're starting to kind of slowly build some reference marks for our face here. Now, if I work back up, we can go to her nose, and noses, I like to think about noses in terms of shapes. And you've got this kind of nice round part in the middle of the nose. So I usually just draw a nice little light circle. And then we can look off to the sides for her nostrils, and we can kind of do the same thing. We can kind of look out and draw two smaller circles. Again, I'm just try to keep it nice and light at this point because we might need to change the size of the nose. Once we get to drawing her lips in more detail, we might think, oh, we've made the nose too big, or we haven't made the lips the right size. So we're going to just be really loose and kind of forgiving of ourselves right now. If you go too dark too early on, it's harder to erase. So like I say, I just kind of adjusted that one nostril a bit. I think before I get into her eyes, I would like to get the shape of her head a little bit more. And then we have a hand, which sometimes hands are like really intimidating. I think just in the essence of time, we're going to take a nice loose approach to her hand and probably not get into too much detail. but I will talk about how I'm going to block that out because she does have a really lovely pose, just kind of resting her chin on her hand there. Okay, so let's go up and start marking the side of her face and just kind of the area where her scarf or her headband bandana is kind of just wrapping around her head. So I'm going to look at this eyebrow line and I'm going to just go up a bit. And again, if you have a printout or your phone, you can move it closer so you can kind of get a better idea of the distances. And this is my favorite way to measure. But a small ruler is very handy to have with you when you're drawing, especially starting out. So I'm just going to follow this shape over and along. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to kind of trim out. We did that big circle in the beginning. Now we're going to kind of chisel away like we would if we were sculpting. So on the side of her eye, it's more vertical. And then it's going to reach up and meet this along her forehead. And then her cheek is going to come out a bit. How are we doing? Is everybody doing okay? Get some thumbs up there. I can't see everybody at once, but I can see maybe 20 of you. I'll try to cycle through in case anybody is drowning. I believe we're recording this, so it'll be available later on. So if you prefer to just watch and draw later, that's awesome too. So now I'm coming down more along her jaw. I'm just looking for those subtle changes along the side of her face. And I'm going to go diagonally over here to meet up with where her chin is. And then I'm going to stop when I kind of reach where her hand starts. We'll come back to that and go back up here. And I like to work all over the face at once as opposed to like drawing the eyes perfectly and then moving on. Whenever I do that, I find that I end up doing one feature really well and then kind of losing it somewhere else. So this helps me just kind of spread myself around a little bit better. Okay, coming down again, right when I get to the side of her eye, I can see there's a vertical change and we have a little bit of hair we can see here underneath her bandana. So I'm just going to give a little indication of that. And then I'm going to come up here and try to work on the top of the head. So I'm going to go back under the eye here where I see that starting. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, if you don't get the folds of her bandana just quite right, what we want to think about is the underlying shape of the head. You know, we don't want to go too high or her head's going to look too tall or too wide. So just kind of remember some genius person at some point in time invented the eraser. So we don't have to be scared of what we're doing. We can always come in and fix it. That would be a very good, oh, you know what? I see I'm casting shadow and that's because I forgot to turn my light on. So it's still gonna make a little bit of shadow. But I think that should be better. Is that better? Hopefully. And I'll try to keep it's a little odd drawing, but I do need to try to remember to keep my hand out of the way. So let me know if that's better. I've got the light coming in through the windows too. Okay. All right. So now I think we can kind of work with that. Okay, good. I'm glad that helped. Okay, so let's block out the hand just a little bit. I'm going to break the hand down into smaller sections because we're not going to get into little fingernails and everything right now. But I'm going to treat these 3 fingers as one group, and then her pinky here as another, and then the top of her hand as a third section. So if we break that down into different parts, that will be a little bit easier. So I'm just looking at this big group now, and I'm just going to kind of create, I'm going to look her bottom lip. If I go down, I can see it's lower than that for where that finger starts. So let me just put a little, oops, line there. And then I'm going to try to think about this. Pencils are getting in my way here. Okay. I'm just going to think about this as kind of a triangular shape. And I'm going to come in and be refining this. So right now, I just want to block it in. A bit of a knuckle, it comes down. So these are those 3 fingers. And now let's add in this pinky finger, leaving a little bit of space here. And your fingers can be divided down into 3 little segments. So if I just kind of think about it as almost like beads or Tootsie Rolls. Tootsie Rolls might be a better way to think about it. If we stick those together, then you kind of start to break out the shape of a finger here. And then we have a little bit of palm. And then see, I'm actually cutting over into some of the chin I've drawn. It's going to adjust. And our photos is cut off a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of a curve down because I can see that my wrist comes in like that and goes down. That will just give me a little more hand to work with. And so throw in an arch there and an arch there. Those are just the knuckles, and I'm just going to throw in quick line, and I will be going back and kind of making this better later, but for now, that will do. At least give me enough indication that that is a hand, right? One of the things I like to say, especially when you're learning drawing, and people are one of the hardest things to draw. They're much harder than drawing an apple or a tree. So you've got to give yourself a lot of grace and patience, and also just think about making your portrait look like a person, like it's human. And then once you got that down, we can start to make it look really, really specifically like your subject. So if Kay comes out looking, anything similarly to what she might look like in life, we're going to call it a win. And then the more you do it, the farther you can take it. So let's come up and let's work on my favorite part, which is the eyes. And the eyes is definitely what you want to put a lot of attention into. So we're going to just kind of look again at our drawing. And let's actually start with the eyebrows because we were pretty confident about the line we put in for our eyebrows. So we can come over here and just start to give them some shape. And you don't have to draw every single eyebrow hair at this point. You can just kind of look at the areas of dark and light and just kind of look at the angle, how the eyebrows are falling, the arches. We're just going to jump over a little bit, get a little bit of shadow there. And then let's do the same thing for the other eyebrow. Just got a little area that goes a little bit higher right there. And see, I've gotten a little close to my side here, which means I think I've made my eyebrow a little too long. So I just adjust. Okay. And then let's get into the eyes. And so for this, I'm going to bring my iPad back over so that I can zoom. And then we can see that eye real nice and big. Okay, I'm going to be starting on her left eye, which is on the right side of the paper for us. And this is going to seem a little strange, but I'm going to just draw in a light circle here. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the actual eyeball as it sits in the orbital cavity here. And I'm just going to do that on both sides. And that just helps me kind of place my eyes a little bit and make sure that her gaze is going off in the right direction. And I'm going to erase this, so you can skip this step if you don't think it will be helpful for you, but it kind of, for me, helps me place them in the skull. Since my background is medical illustration, I'm looking at the surface, but part of my brain is always thinking about what's underneath it as well. Okay. All right, so her eye is going to fall about here. And I'm just going to do that. Darken the eyebrow right there just to be a better reference. So I'm starting here in the inner corner of her eye. And then I'm going to watch it as it goes, that upper eyelid goes up and curves around the eyeball. And then here it comes down the other side. And let's do the lower lid. Same thing. I'm just, because I drew that, kind of shape underneath, just helping remind me that this is a three-dimensional shape. And then I'm going to curve down below. That seems okay to me. The big test is when we put the iris in, the iris being the colored part of your eye. And let's add that in. You can see just a little smidgen of it is hidden by the bottom lid. Just going to adjust my bottom lid to make that slightly higher. Come in here. Okay. And she's got a little eyeliner on, which is making the lid and her lashes a little darker, so I can look at this and decide whether I need to go lower or higher. Just gonna lower that a little bit and then go ahead and give that a little bit of shading here. Okay. So I'm going to jump over and do the same thing to the other eye before I start filling in. If I fill in the iris right now and I've made a mistake, it's going to make it a little trickier for me to erase. So I will just leave it kind of as an outline for the moment. And I'm going to start this eye on the other corner. Let me do some measurements first here. See how far over I want to come. Okay, actually. I'm just kind of looking, let me zoom out, looking at her nose and how far over her nostril comes underneath the iris and vice versa. So if I drop a line down from that eye, I can see that it's pretty even with that nostril. Go straight down. So I can kind of do that to check. So that one looks good. But if I go on the other side and I were to take a line and go up, I'm going to hit over here on the iris. Yeah, see that? So any of those kind of blueprint lines that might be helpful for you to draw in, go for it. I find them very helpful to me to compare the distances. Kind of like milepost on the highway, just let you know where you're at. This eye, just because, may appear just a little bit smaller, and it would just be because of the angle of the photo. And now this iris is closer to the edge here. So at this point, a really good thing to do is to actually stand up and just take a step or two away from your drawing and, just see, does everything seem about right? It's a really good thing to do multiple times while you're drawing. It helps you put it in perspective. So I'm actually going to do that. And I can kind of look and see. Sometimes it just helps your brain switch over and instantly see what needs to be adjusted. Another thing I'm doing that I didn't mention is I have my pad slightly raised. I just have something sitting underneath it, like a book or something. And that will help me look down at an angle more. You're like your eyesight is looking at an angle already, as opposed to just flat. So if you find that you're getting any distortion, try just sticking something underneath your pad or holding it in your lap. All right, let's go down here. Well, let's go do the nose. If you want to go ahead and fill in those eyes now, you can. Sometimes I like to just do a little bit of everything before I get to the fun stuff. It's like making you wait for dessert until after you've had your dinner first. So I'm just looking here at her nose and the space between her two nostrils. And I'm just following that. It's got this nice, lovely little curve up. I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to draw her nostrils as holes. I'm going to think of them more as a tunnel on a road, because the bottom is attached to your upper lip here. So if I just draw more of an arch here as opposed to a whole circle, that's going to look a little bit more realistic and a little more natural. Take that one. Come over a little bit. So I'm just going to adjust real quick. Okay. And now I'm going to just shade in some of the darkness by adding a little shading under that. So I've created depth, but I haven't done it as just a solid circle. Okay. And now I'm going to just fill in the shape of the outer edges of her nostril. Coming down and just gently following that up and around. And same thing on the other side. And on this side, we have this lovely little kind of shadow. So I might go just a little bit darker, just so I can add a bit of that shape. And then follow up here along the side of her nose. What I try not to do is draw, two lines. I don't know if you can see me on their screen, two lines down around both sides. We want to go darker in some areas and lighter. So I'm going to let that taper off. And then when we do the shading, we can kind of handle this side. Okay, like that. Let's come down to the lips if you're ready to move on to the next area. And we have underneath your nose, you have this kind of teardrop shape. It's called the philtrum. I like to draw that in first and then I can draw my upper lip underneath. And just think about the shapes. It's kind of like an outer curve here. Convex, like, right? Yeah. This side of the lip seems a little straighter to me. It seems a little sharper. So I'm gonna be a little sharper on that side. A big thank you to Kay if she's here. Thank you so much. And jump over in the chat section and let us know if you're here. And if anybody wants to get on the chat and just let me know where you're watching from. I'm always curious when I do these live drawings where everyone is from. It just makes the country, maybe the world, seem a little bit smaller to know that we're all together doing the same thing for an hour. So, it brings me happiness. I'm in Tennessee. I'm near Knoxville, so right by the Smoky Mountains. Dolly Parton's our big local hero. Peyton Manning played for UT, so Kenny Chesney, if you listen to country music, who else? But yeah, it's beautiful here. Oh, that's great. Kansas City, yes. I'm actually originally from Kansas City. New York, Oregon, Arkansas, love it. Pennsylvania, Rocky Mountains, okay. The other stuff, Nevada, Wisconsin, wow, that's so great. Tucson, Houston, Glen Allen. I'm seeing so many I've moved around a lot, so like Glen Allen, I lived in Richmond, lived right near there. Seattle, Arlington, Ohio, Vegas, Louisiana. Oh, that's great. This is fabulous. Davie, Florida. Okay, I lived in Florida. South Jersey, Philly. Wonderful. Ah, great. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and drawing with me. Okay. Now let's go back to her eyes. I'm going to add a little indication here. This shadow here, and that shadow is this bony rim of the orbit there. So, if you feel on your own face, some of these features that we're drawing, and they're the bony areas of our face. But that's what's making this lovely little shadow here around her eye. And then I'm going to draw this little line right under her eye here. Again, that's going to just follow the shape of that round circle we drew, that eyeball, the ball of the eye. And then the same thing on her upper lid. She's got this fold that we have here. You'll notice I didn't get detailed. I didn't draw individual eyelashes or anything yet. Those are the dessert. Those are the things we do at the end. And I'm still using that same 2B pencil. I usually tend to just do the whole underdrawing in one pencil and then get darker ones later. But you can see this is a nice dark line here. So if you wanted to switch to a softer pencil, you could. The softer pencil is going to be darker. And then I'll come over here and add my upper lid crease on this side. And then there's just kind of the fold of the lid. I'm just going to follow that around to just give myself an indication of where I want to do some shading later. Right. Draw in a bit of this shadow because this shadow is this nice blend here, and then it's a little sharp. Roswell, South Georgia, New Jersey. Y'all live in some fun places. Okay, so what I've just done there was I was just looking at this little shadow under her nose. So I've just kind of given myself a little indication there. I'm just kind of marking out a few of these shadows now because I'm almost ready to switch to a different pencil or to do some shading. And I'm just making a few notes about a few spots. I'm going to make her finger just a little longer here. I guess maybe it's her nail. It's a little longer. And I'm doing that because I want to just a little bit where that cheek is being pushed up by her finger. I just want to give an indication of that. And then I'm just making some adjustments as I go. I can see I needed to make this finger over a little bit farther. So I'm just going to do that. You just adjust as you go. If we didn't make mistakes, it would be boring. So just when you see something that you catch that doesn't look right, just go in and adjust. So an interesting thing about our hands when you're drawing, and we can kind of see it here, on the palm of our hands, if we look at our finger pads, they're pretty equal in size. Like they're almost like a third, a third, a third. But then if we look at the top of our hands, they seem to get bigger as we go down. And that's just because we consider it on the bottom of our hand as ending here at the palm. But when we look at the top of our hands, we really consider it to almost go down to the knuckle. So when you're looking and drawing hands, you can kind of think about that. Remember, if you're drawing the top of the hand, the distances are going to seem to increase, but on the bottom, they're going to be very similar, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, I don't want to get too, I could spend days drawing hands, and I haven't even checked the time. So that's what happens when you get caught up drawing. Today's portrait, when we get done, will end up being about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, depending upon how much time we lost when I completely lost power and disappeared and talked about some of the photo editing stuff. And I'm just now noticing I can just see a tiny bit of her hair beyond her little bandana. So I'm just going to add a bit of shading up there for that indication. I can add details later. Okay, let's give her just a bit of shoulders and neck and the earrings, and then I'm going to switch pencils. So looking at her, just tiny bit of neck we can see here. Just going to come in here and give an indication. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here around her sweater. Let's see where that's coming from. If I draw the line down, it looks like I need to do that from the outer edge of the eye. So maybe about here. And then shirt. Something like that. Other side. A little bit higher. Okay. So just by adding those few little lines, I've kind of set her head on something. I don't mind a floating head because I like to focus on the fun part, which is the features, but that way we've got her head setting on something. Okay, I'm going to switch pencils here. I'm just going to go a little darker. Might jump up to a 4B. If you've got one pencil, that's absolutely fine. You can press a little harder. You can also turn the pencil to the side so that you can shade a little bit more from the side. So let's go in. Let's start on the good stuff. Let's start on her eye. Now you can either avoid the highlights in the eye by kind of outlining where you want them to be and then just not shading on that. Or you can shade the whole thing and then you can use an eraser to erase that out. I will show you this. This is, if you really enjoy drawing and it's something you want to start doing on a daily basis or, a couple times a month, this is an electric eraser, and I think it's about $10 on Amazon, and it's got some kick and it will really erase out well. So that's kind of a fun thing to keep an eye out for. But you don't need fancy tools to draw either. Okay, so I've just kind of indicated where I want to just leave those highlights, and now I'm just going to come in here and shade the iris. Her eyes are a really nice dark brown. So the pupil is, if you look closely enough, you can see it, but the way I'm going to handle that is just by going darker in the middle. And I can think about the shape of the pupil just being round. So I'm just going to kind of add a little bit more darkness to the middle. And also around the edges. And I need to sharpen. So let me carry on while I sharpen this pencil. Let's see. I am always up to teaching more classes. I see a question. So as much as everyone wants them and as much as everyone will have me over here on Senior Planet or with my friends on Sktchy, I'm always up for it. Okay. So now I'm just darkening this upper lid. Once you feel confident about a line, once you like a line, you can go ahead and be brave enough to go ahead and darken that up. And darker in the corner here. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention is the whites of the eyes are not they're not really white. You know, we have shadow, we have the lid, so I am going to go in and just lightly shade that, and this is probably not the right pencil. It's coming out a little dark, so let me get something lighter. Or just use less pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and add some shadow there on the eyes. Just darker at the top and lightening down. Okay, it's going to go ahead and give us some three-dimensionality to that. And then now I'm going to come back in and darken around that. And usually you can see a little bit of the thickness of the lower lid. So that's what I'm doing. And then I'll just add a little darkness here in the corner of your eye where you have that little fun glob. It's called the caruncle. It's where your tears drain out of, but it's also known as informally as the little glob in the corner of your eye. And do some shading here. And when I shade, I like to turn my pencil to the side a lot and just kind of use the side of the pencil. You can also see I'm holding the pencil pretty far back. I'm just working my way towards that other eye is what I'm doing. And let's go ahead and add some shadow here on the side of her eye as well. Sorry. Back. I'm not going as dark as I will end up, but it just starts to give me a little shape to work with once you start to add some of those shadows. Okay. Let's catch our other eye up now. Check the time. Again, just darkening up that upper lid. And then let's come in and do the same thing with this eye. And we want to look at the spaces, so the negative space. So by negative space, I mean how much white is showing to the left of her eye here and how much is on the right. Because if you just put that iris right in the middle of the eye, it might end up being a beautiful eye, but it just may not be looking in the right direction. So I'm just kind of double checking as I go. And if you don't like something, erase and just fix it. Try again. This is your first portrait you've ever done, then you've already won because you started. See, I think I used a different pencil on this eye because it came out quite a bit darker. So I'm going to go over here and darken this one. And then I'm going to break up those white highlights a little bit. Usually what we're seeing is the reflection of a window. Could be a flash bulb from a camera. Nowadays, sometimes they take pictures with those ring lights, and then you get the eyes that have like the big white bright circles that are kind of creepy. And just looking at that little shape underneath her eye, adding some shadow. Other thing is sometimes you start a drawing and you might not have an hour, you might not have 2 hours, you might have 30 minutes or 20 minutes. So you can get the base of the drawing in and then you can pick a feature. Somebody has amazing eyes, you maybe just want to focus on their eyes and you let everything else be a little unfinished. Someone has great lips, maybe you just, do the eyes quickly and then you focused all the detail on the lips. If you are the one doing the drawing, you're the artist, you get to take the artistic license. So I'm going to come in here and darken up her eyebrows now. I'm going to move my hand so you can see. Once you start adding that value and that darkness, you'll see you want to start adding it everywhere so that it moves your eyes around the page. I'm just trying to look at the direction the eyebrows hairs are growing. And go in here and darken up a little bit more. This is when you start to be able to have fun. It's stressful laying out the drawing, getting everything in the right spots and trying to get your proportions right. But once you get to kind of start shading, then it gets fun. I'm gonna add some darkness around the nose. Coming in here in the nostrils and darkening them up. I went a little dark there. Yeah, so Lynn notices that I kind of hold my place while I'm drawing, and I do. It really helps me kind of align both sides of my brain and just be able to quickly glance over and see. It helps me kind of measure distances. And I think the more I have been teaching, the more I do it even more, because then I feel like I'm kind of leading everybody to say that, look this is where we're at, or this is where I'm at. Just adding some of the darkness under the tip of her nose now to give that dimension. I like to think there are really, no wrong ways to draw. You do what feels comfortable to you. There's a lot of methods of teaching and a lot of different ways to learn how to draw, especially, when it comes to faces. You kind of do what feels right to you. Okay. That's so funny. I really have never thought about that before. Now I'm going to be like catching myself doing it all the time. That's funny. Yeah, I definitely do that. Just going to draw in a little bit of this nasolabial fold here. And what I'm not going to do is draw a real dark straight line. What I want to do is let it be darker and then go light in an area, and then maybe come a little bit darker farther on. And that's just going to kind of help us avoid kind of that outliney look or cartoony look. My eraser this is a kneaded eraser. It comes in a little square, and it's usually about 99 cents, and you can just tear it and stretch it. So when it gets too dirty in a place, you just pull it, kind of like silly putty, until you get a clean spot, and then you just use it forever and ever and ever. They're fabulous. Let's see. Deb is asking, do I place the shadowing where I feel it should be? Yes, and also where I kind of see it. And maybe this is a good time to look at the black and white. So I exaggerated the shadow here coming off her nose. It does seem a little darker here to me on the color version, but when I look at the black and white version, I can see it's really not that much. So probably just dab. This is another thing that eraser is great for. So you can kind of just dab it, and it will just kind of lighten it a little bit, so I can lighten it. But yeah, I take a lot of artistic license. Sometimes I think something should be a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna shade her lip here. I'm gonna do it kind of in like a rainbow arch, or like a kind of coming up, because that will help me kind of show that the lines that we all have in our lips, without having to like necessarily draw all the lines in our lips. I'm also just kind of looking, it's a little darker in some areas. And darker in the corners here. Just such a nice pensive little expression. One of the things I do, and I'm like kind of taking artistic license, it's very easy to change the expression of your subject just by turning the corners of their lips up or down. So if you intend to do that, that is a wonderful thing. If you don't, it's something you just kind of have to watch out for. Also, the corners of the eyes. I did a portrait yesterday. I made my subject looked so sad, and it was just, I had drawn the eyes just down a little bit more than they should have been. And here's this other eraser. It's just a kind of pointed little eraser. It's called a mono eraser. Everything I'm using is just based, you can get at Michael's. But I have done plenty of drawings with just a standard school issue 2B yellow pencil as well. If you're very brave, you might want to draw with pen. Pen drawings are wonderful and amazing. They are just slightly less forgiving. So just keep that in mind. If you like to experiment, or you're like me, you kind of enjoy making mistakes, then you might want to stick with a pencil. All right. And the top lip is usually darker than the bottom, just due to lighting. So I might just come in and just add a little bit more darkness to the top lip. And it actually has a nice soft edge, and I've kind of drawn it in quite sharp. So I might come back later with my eraser and lighten that up. Add some shadow under her lip there. I'm looking, I think maybe I've made her chin a little long. I might just adjust that. I forgot to give her earrings. Okay, I'm just gonna add a bit of shadow here around her mouth. Again, that just kind of where that hand is putting pressure. And then if it's too much, I'm just gonna go in and dab it away. Another thing that is handy on portraits are you can get the jumbo pencils, like like the kindergarten pencils. They're just fatter. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yes, I've done something that I don't like here. Make an adjustment. They're really nice for shading, those big kind of fat kindergarten pencils. Change the angle of that finger a bit. Really love that fold. All right, so I'm just going to go in here and just kind of refine the edges of the fingers just so that I have the fingers in, but they're not my main feature. And if you want, you can, there's nothing wrong with skipping the hand. You'll have to kind of think about maybe the shape of her jaw and then the ears tucked in, so no trouble there. Gonna give the slightest indication of fingernails. And check on time. Okay, so someone's asking about drawing the bridge of the nose. I drew it on the left side because it felt a little sharper to me there. And this felt a little more shaded. So it felt more of a, like a slope, like a landscape. So to me, it felt like I should use a line more here and shading more here. And I need to go darker here. It's just drawing is like just a series of doing a little bit and then looking and then saying I need to do more. And then so that is why I made that call. I'm not saying that is the right call because I really do think we all develop our own decision-making skills and preferences, so someone else is probably going to do it the other way and it was just as fabulous. But yeah, I would kind of looked at it. It just, that line seemed a little harder on that side to me. And, I think that too, in a way reinforces how it's helpful to have a color copy and a black and white version. You see things differently because we don't always see color photos in their values in the same way. I'm going to add, she's got this, let's go back to, we've got this nice shadow in here. So I'm going to go in and add some of that in. And just a little cramped in terms of space because of my lamp here and not wanting to I would probably take my pad and change it. You don't have to draw straight up and down. You can completely turn your paper to the side if it makes it more comfortable to draw a certain angle, and then you don't have to I don't know, flamingo your arm like I'm doing here. Make sure you just move it around till it's comfortable. I just don't want to go out of focus and Yeah, that is creating some weird, I don't like that. I might have to move it anyways, or move my body to compensate. You're going to develop, an angle that feels right for shading. So this is going to feel better for me. Yeah, that allows me to kind of go in the right direction for. And you can also you can smear it, you could get a blending tool or a tissue or anything to kind of blend that. It's a little bit lighter here. And there's that. I have a little there. So just by adding that little bit of tone, it starts to really kind of pull things into perspective. Just adjust. Let me move her cheek a little higher. And then it's very dark, more of a dark line around the bottom of her bandana, and a little softer down here. She does have some shading there, so we want to add at least a little bit to the other side so it feels a little more even. And there's a million different ways to shade. I'm doing really kind of choppy straight lines today. You could be very soft about it. You could use more circular motions. You could crosshatch, which would be drawing a lot of little lines parallel to each other. These are all just different things you can experiment with. Now on her chin, where we have the chin and we have those muscles that attach and then they kind of create those little bumps. I'm going to just kind of change the direction of my shading to kind of give it that feeling of just what happens around our chin. To some of us more than others, I suppose. And then she's got a great little kind of dimple up there I need to get in. So some of those little features are what really helps it look more like your subject. And then as I go, as I get darker in areas, I realize I need to go even darker in other areas. So the end of my drawings are always just kind of going back and making things darker or erasing things out. And the more you draw, the softer it will start to get. And I think I'll just refine the edge of her scarf a bit. It does have a pattern. If you've got time and want to get into it, you could certainly do that. And let's see. I think I exaggerated it a little bit, but I'm okay with it because I don't think it's affecting the purpose of the drawing. Now I'm gonna look at my iPad here. Yes, I see just some small little pieces of her hair behind the cap, so I might just add those in. And some shading on the neck. Yeah, so I am kind of wrapping it up here. I've just got a few more little areas that I can add some shading to. Does anybody have any questions or anything they would like me to kind of address or before we finish up? I forgot to add the shading underneath the eye here. And then if you're finishing up your drawings too, if it's okay before we go, I'll just say, have everybody hold them up or I'll give you a second, or I'll give myself a second so I can open up my gallery view and see more of you at once. I always like to see what everybody's come up with. And just add shading here. Just going back and just looking for any other areas that I could maybe add just a little bit more interest to, that maybe had a little bit of shading that I skipped. Might go in and just darken the lips a little bit. And then the other fun part, don't forget to sign your drawings. You worked hard. Yes, if you can tell that your drawing is a face, you have aced this. You have done very well. I'm just taking now a really dark pencil and I'm just going to add a nice dark line to that upper lid. And that's going to just kind of pull the eye there a little bit. And you could do that inside your eye as well, just to give it, just to let you know that's what we find as important. Okay, I'm going to stop drawing for a second and I'm going to come over here and find my gallery and see how big I can open it up. And then, oops, let's see. Okay, if anybody is done and is willing to share their drawings and hold them up to their camera, I would love to see what you've done. Oh my gosh. Fabulous. That is, these are looking so good. Wow. Oh my God. Yeah, now I'm on a different page. Y'all did really good. I don't know how many of you are first timers and are, you know, how many of you maybe are experts, but I'm really impressed. I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly have. And thank you for your patience. Gosh, these look really good. Thank you for your patience when my power went out. Tennessee weather in the springtime, you never know what you're going to get. So I guess we're getting something. That is really wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing. I hope you've enjoyed. Let me just go back and check the questions again to see if I've gotten anything else I need to address. I hope you all had fun. I really, really do. Like I said, I really enjoy the community of drawing together. It's, you know, you can get just, even when you're not talking, I think you get a sense of encouragement and just kind of knowing that you share a hobby that's very relaxing and fulfilling with other people. So if Kay was here, thank you so much for submitting your photo so that we could draw it. It was absolutely perfect for this type of lesson. So I hope everyone keeps drawing. I hope you keep doing portraits. So just keep it up. So just kind of skimming through comments.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. You did a really great job to me of answering other questions as they were popping up, but a lot of praise in the chat. Folks are really happy about today's session. And yeah, this was fantastic.
Well, good, good. Thank you all for being here. I so appreciate the chance to spend an afternoon drawing with everyone. So